Aloha, I'm Tanya.
Aloha, I'm Anna. We're the Paradise
Patriots.
We're here today to talk about a really probably one of the most important topics that we could discuss politically right now, and that is regime change. And it's not regime change in another foreign country. It's not the ongoing regime changes that we're trying to promote. It's the regime change that's going on in America, and
that some people are actually even calling for.
Right. Without understanding the implications or even the structure.
They might not even understand by saying that I want to impeach Trump.
Right.
That means you are wanting a regime change of someone who was democratically elected.
Exactly. and I think the things for people to really understand because even an impeachment is a political process, but the foundation of the impeachment is founded on fallacy.
A lot of fallacy.
Right. And it's being fomented by the establishment because of their agenda.
And the media that supports them.
The media is one of their weapons. The media is one of the tools.
It's definitely a weapon of mass destruction.
Right. And it's a tool that's used, it's a huge tool that's used in any regime change process that the United States has engaged in any country across the world. The media has been huge in brainwashing us into thinking that regime change was necessary in another country, and we have, evidence of that more than I like to even look at, but probably in the last 30 years, we've been involved in regime change in over 70 countries, and we have like a 75% success rate. How horrific is that? But even in Obama's administration, yep. Right? Regime change in 3 countries?
3 countries, Libya, Yemen, and Syria.
Right. We're still pushing the envelope with Syria, but Libya
right.
and Yemen.
Iraq.
And Iraq, exactly.
Iraq
so 4 countries. 4 countries and 1 candidate. That's
and also just for me, it's like if we're constantly going out there and trying to purport that we need regime changes in these other countries, regime changes of democratically elected leaders, and then putting in our dictators.
Our choice,
right. Why do we think that's not going to come back and bite us in the butt and happen here?
And why exactly? And I think the other thing to really keep in mind, especially here, is whether we like Donald Trump or not, he was democratically elected. I don't like him. But I'm a political atheist. I have to say that I didn't support either candidate. But we have a process, and I
can admit that, even though I can say that the primaries weren't part of the democratic process. They were obstructed. But I can still say that I will accept Donald Trump
yes.
as my president.
Yes.
I will not like the majority of stuff he does.
And I'll fight it.
Right, absolutely. I'll
we
fight
have the
everything
tools,
he does.
We have the tools to do that.
But I don't want to say to the millions of people that voted for him and disrupt that democratic process that I totally believe in.
Right. Exactly. Because
then it can happen at another time when I'm on the losing side.
Exactly.
So it takes a lot of maturity to actually see it from this point, and I'm not even a very mature person.
And we have to look at what an act like that actually implies. What an act like that of taking out somebody who was democratically elected and demonizing them and taking apart their government, however they set that up, taking that apart, even if it's horrific. If the Democratic Party didn't like it, they should have done a better job. Right?
That's all.
It is a whole nother one, but it's the reality of what we have.
It's the reality of what we have to swallow. So you lost. It's a reality of what we have to swallow.
You lost because...
And I don't want to be a threat to the democratic process because I'm not happy the way things are. Because that's not the way to fix it.
And the point of the danger of a regime change that is being constructed this way by fomenting and demonizing a person and then demonizing a group and the constant media frenzy about absolute nonsense, and then demonizing his relationship with another country, a country that we really don't want to foment a war with. But so there's so many moving parts of it, but the
whole thing about Russia has been coming at us for years.
Right.
Years.
And that's part
this did not happen just last year.
No, and it's part of the agenda of the establishment.
Right.
And the election of Donald Trump has interrupted the establishment's agenda. And that's where this is coming from. That's where the media frenzy and everything and all of these other components are coming from. And you can, my point is, look at the blueprint. Look at the blueprint of what we did in Ukraine. Look at the blueprint of how this got cranked up in Egypt. Look at the blueprint of how it got cranked up in Syria. Those aren't backwards little countries. Those people are just as sophisticated, just as smart, just as educated, just as cultured as we are. And they were living lives just like we were before the intervention started. Right? And look what happened. And that happened by a structure that is being implemented here too. By a structured way of creating regime change that we are undergoing now. I really want people to get that. We don't want to do this. We don't want to go down this road.
Can I lend people to go visit globalresearch.ca, which is the Center for Research on Globalization. This article was a series, I think a 3-part series, maybe 2-part, called The Origins of World War III. This was written or at least it was posted in November 2009. And part 2 is called The Origins of World War III. And it talks about the color revolutions that the U.S. leads in these other countries for regime change. And that these revolutions are portrayed in the Western media as popular democratic revolutions in which the people of these respective nations demand democratic accountability and governance from their despotic leaders and archaic political systems. However, the reality is far from what this utopian imagery suggests. Western NGOs, non-government organizations, and media heavily finance and organize opposition groups and protest movements, and in the midst of an election create a public perception of vote fraud in order to mobilize the mass protest movements to demand their candidate be put into power. It just so happens that their candidate is always the Western U.S. favored candidate, whose campaign is often heavily financed by Washington, and who proposes U.S.-friendly policies and neoliberal economic conditions. In the end, it is the people who lose out as their genuine hope for change and accountability is denied by the influence the U.S. wields over their political leaders.
There you go.
Just living in Hawaii, what would the media be saying about what happened in 1893?
Well, you can look at what happened. I mean, you can look at people's perception. You can look at people's perception that we were living in grass shacks and thank God the United States showed up or we would still be savages. We were one of the most progressive nations in the family of nations. We were accepted in the family of nations in Europe. We were extremely sophisticated. People were coming here, black women slaves were coming here from the United States because they had freedom to open businesses and to have their own lives. So we were taken back hundreds of years by the implementation of that oligarchic structure that overthrew our queen.
And the Christianity that sometimes comes with
that was a tool of it.
It's a tool.
It was
used as a tool.
It was used as a tool, but it was that same bankers, basically, if you want to look at it that way, bankers that came in and took over and implemented, they took over the House of Nobles, they took over the political process, and they inserted themselves and it went from there until it finally got to the point where the Queen was opposed to their the kind of rules and legal structures that they were implementing, and wrote her own constitution. That's really what set it off. She wrote a constitution to take back the power and take back the land for the people, and that's why they called them U.S. Marines. Yep. And then it was a hell for the Hawaiian people after that.
Right.
And that plays out, with the United States all over the globe.
All over the globe.
And now my point, I'm trying to tell the American people, it's your turn now. It's happening to you. And you can look at what things that are being implemented. Look at what's being implemented across the United States. Seizure laws, search and seizure laws, where your property can be seized without any legal proceedings to have that happen. The protest laws that are happening now. Even if they recover a tweet or an email or a message on Facebook, that you had anything to do with any kind of protest and there was any kind of damage done, you can be held accountable. You can go to jail. You can be fined. You'll be...
so don't bother deleting this video.
No, when I'm just saying that, you have to look at the structures that are being implemented in the United States for the next phase of what's going to... Net neutrality.
Right.
Just look at what's being implemented. Austerity.
Right.
Look what's being implemented. It's
And yet we have people calling for the impeachment of our president, who neither of us like.
I don't.
Anyway.
But I find him to be less threatening than this acceleration of the structure that's being implemented, and he didn't put that in motion.
No, that's been in motion.
Since 9/11, I think.
And since 9/11, it's gotten much worse.
It's accelerated.
It's expanded. Obama was president for 8 of those years, and a lot of stuff got slipped in there. We kind of fell asleep for a little bit.
For a little 8 years.
I know I did. I did. I admit it. Not proud. But I think it's also not just people are calling for the impeachment of Trump, but they're getting closer to, and they're angry with Russia.
Right.
What are we doing to the people of Russia? I mean, it's like we're antagonizing the whole situation.
And I think that's the other thing that people don't understand, even with all of the things that are going on in that area of the world. And I don't have a lot of information on that, but I have enough to know that basically the United States, through NATO and other organizations, is pretty much surrounded Russia on every border with weapons. So if we suddenly had weapons from Russia on our Mexican and Canadian border, I don't think we would have the patience that Russia's had of trying to work out some sort of a sane solution to what's happening. So there's a lot of things that are going on. I'm by no means an expert. I know very little about it. I know enough to know there's a little bit of their side of it, but clearly what is going on in America right now in terms of this, you're undergoing your own structured, planned regime change, and people are being herded to accept that. Right. And it's a slippery slope. When you undo a democratically elected official, it's what are you going to get after
that?
And
I think our efforts and our energy and our attention and our intelligence is more productive if we lend it to where we can actually create real change. Right. Which would be looking at what our members of Congress are actually doing, the people who are pro-war, and they want more regime changes, and they bought into that. This is how it is, and this is how it has to be, and we're going to keep perpetuating it. Those people got to go, and we don't have to wait that long. There's an election, midterms are next year, and so I think it's really important to look at where our energy could be spent productively
for 4 years
instead of getting totally thrown. They want us to get thrown off course for the next year and a half before 2018, and just talk about impeaching Trump and talk about how horrible he is and talk about Russia instead of voting the people out who got us in this position, who brought us to this place with our complacency, for sure, with our complacency for sure, but we need to focus on 2018.
And I think the really, really, really big thing is the establishment. And we really have to...
We need to de-establish.
We really do, and we have to not go left or right. We have to not be red and blue. We have to be the people that have to... The establishment doesn't benefit us, no matter who's in office. It doesn't matter as long as it's that same structure.
Well, what about these people who say Mike Pence is better than Trump?
I don't think it's going to matter.
And Paul Ryan?
Well...
The people behind the scenes don't change.
No, and they would be the establishment choice. Because
they would be the establishment choice.
They'll go along with the agenda, and we don't want the agenda. I don't know anybody that wants to go to war. I don't know everybody I know wants single payer.
We all want single payer.
Everybody I know wants.
We don't. Yeah, we want net neutrality.
We want net neutrality. Yeah. We want our kids to go to college for free if they've got the, smarts to get there. We want our children to have, for God's sake, excuse my language, but fucking lunch at school without having to mop the floors up. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it?
It is. It's
just ridiculous. I want to be able to protest without being fenced in.
Right. And so,
or being a felon when I'm done because I tweeted somebody about it. I just like, oh my God. I mean, there's probably, of all of my political activity, I've never gone to jail, but I'm like, you know what? It's not over yet. And this time I could be a felon.
You've never been a
To get
Paradise Patriot in
my
2017.
Get ready to wear a yellow suit and, walk around
And poop in front of people.
Yeah, oh my God. I just can't believe how crazy it's getting. And that's the stuff we should be worrying about.
Yeah, I think we really need to look at what is wrong with the democratic process and how we can fix that.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with it are the people in office right now who are let it keep happening, and those of us who keep voting for those people.
Or however they're getting in. I mean, God, we don't even know anymore.
Right.
How could you keep Nancy Pelosi in there all those years? It's like she's petrified. She's still in there. And the other thing I think is that people are politically awake, and I don't think that structure works anymore.
Well, it's better to be politically awake than politically correct.
There you go. But it's a topic for another time. But I think representative government doesn't work.
Well, it's not working for sure.
I don't think it ever.
And I think we're way awake now.
Yeah, I think we really need a whole different structure. People should look at direct democracy as an option.
I think that's not going to happen unless we really
get rid of the establishment.
Right.
So that's our problem. And going through a regime change is it'll only fortify the establishment. It'll only fortify them.
And it's just hilarious that all these people who are wanting to impeach Trump aren't mad at the DNC for what they did last year.
I'll never get that.
It's an incongruency
it totally
within.
Is. Yeah.
To be mad at the person who got in, and so you've deflected your anger in the wrong direction instead of at the people who were so corrupt that they finagled two people, neither of which the majority of people wanted.
Right.
Which is
the
why
two possible worst candidates ever.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to blame the people who actually stuck with their principles is really you're a threat to the democratic process when you're those people.
Yeah. And
because you're not seeing the bigger picture here.
Yeah. And it's a topic for another time too, is Obama's reign. I don't know, people are in love with him.
I'm still in love
know
with
his
him.
record.
He was a really bad boyfriend.
It's horrific.
It's horrific. But he looks good, and he's a good person, and he's a nice guy, and he's
good
fun,
person,
and he's and so I don't want to believe about the how many bombs he dropped and how many drones.
I think we should do. Well, that'll be another one. We'll do one on Obama and really just roll out his record so that people understand
that. And it's not Obama, and it's not Trump.
No, it's the establishment.
It's the establishment behind them. So to point your finger at one person and say, oh, well, we just want to get that person out, does not correct the situation. Yeah. It doesn't make life better for us. We're still kept people. We're still a kept people, kept in our box.
Yeah, we're corralled.
True liberty doesn't have a box.
No, it doesn't. That's why I think, you're right.
Well, so, I hope this has been informative.
Yep. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a dangerous, slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. I just hope that everyone uses their intelligence, energy, emotions, and time just where you can be the most productive.
That's it.
So I'm Tanya.
And I'm Anna.
And we're the Paradise Patriots.
Aloha.